Hello, welcome to Poppin Predictions, where we believe movies aren't over at the end, but are meant to be continued. You're here with Andy and Marqueze, where we ponder what happens to the story once the credits begin to roll. So, on today, we have a very, very, very special episode. One of the dear friends of the podcast actually wrote and directed his own film. And we have with us today the amazing Joseph Gardner.
Woo! Yay!
Hey.
Joseph, do you want to take a second to just, introduce like yourself, yourself as a filmmaker, and then just tell us a little bit about the film?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, just thanks for having me on the podcast. I've been listening for a super long time, so this is cool to be on. And it's good to see you both again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Mimesis is a feature film. It started out as a short film, kind of. So I pitched it, I don't know, a couple months ago. And we're given a range, like it'll be either like 30 minutes to like an hour. And we were going to try to keep it on the short side, but it ended up being a lot longer than what we were picturing. But it's about a young college student, pretty much just starting college, who struggles with social anxiety and kind of has to evade this creature that's stalking them. So yeah,
That's a good one.
The log line there. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta start off with the first question. Obviously watching the film brought me back to 2-3 years ago when Marqueze, where we all met at WSU. And I can't help but feel a little like betrayed that the monster was a husky. Like you couldn't, like how come you didn't do like a cat that turned into a coug,
I couldn't find a cougar to had to settle with the next best thing.
We didn't have a cougar trainer in the budget, so
yeah, we were slightly, couldn't quite afford it.
No, that's fair. No, that's fair. No, I really enjoyed the film. I kind of want to know a little bit about like the inspiration behind it. Like, obviously, you're a recent college grad yourself. So like, was it a lot of like your personal experiences, or like at least in the film itself, like what are some of your inspirations when coming up with this one?
Yeah, actually it was based a lot on personal experience, kind of like going through some of those themes of anxiety that are kind of throughout the film. Definitely during COVID, it really heightened those feelings for me. And it also sort of like helped, me kind of work through those things. Yeah, so like the character of Elle is like definitely like very much a self-insert. And kind of the film as a whole is sort of me like working through some of those issues and sort of like kind of showing that process. As far as like film inspirations, definitely Hereditary.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
I think we watched that movie like with like almost like 5 times within the first month I met you.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I've seen it like definitely over 10 times for sure. A lot, too much. But Hereditary is a big one. Alien, that's definitely a big one. Kind of subconsciously The Thing. I didn't really realize that was an inspiration until I like was sitting down trying to come up with a log line, and I was like, okay, it's a shape-shifting husky, and I'm like, okay, that's that's pretty much the thing. But I've heard people compare it to It Follows, and I could definitely see that as well.
Yes, okay, I was about to say that. I was 100% about to say that, so I'm very glad you did.
Definitely, yeah. Those are for sure like some of the big ones. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There are years worth of like watching films and like appreciating films is really like kind of built up to this product, and I really tried to put my personal experience into it and kind of like write like what I know. So yeah, I think that was important for me.
Really cool.
I'll say, so in particular about the film itself, there were like a few things I like noted and that like that I like really liked or had questions about. One of the first things that I liked and noticed about it was like the sound in the film. When it came to like background music or like the kind of scary themes or like, you know, the like bringing like the anxiety or the intensity, like I thought the sound design for the film was like really, really good. Especially just for like being like an independent film. So first of all, just congrats to you and like whoever like was like heading that. Like I thought that was like really, really well done.
Yeah, Alex Michael is our sound designer. Yeah, like whenever I watch horror movies, like I feel like sound is just particularly really important to horror movies specifically. So when we started, Allie and I, she's a producer of Mimesis, and we were sitting down, we were like, we probably need a sound designer. Like I don't have a lot of experience with sound. And yeah, so Alex was really integral to that, and he was really, you know, did a lot of really hard work.
Yeah. I think this story does a really great job of like capturing like, I don't know, the essence of anxiety and like what it looks like. And then like just like kind of shows like how to best overcome anxiety and just trying different ways. It's not one size fits all, because of course when we're first introduced to Elle, she is trying I don't know if mnemonic device is the correct term, but like she's counting and she's trying to count the different things and stuff like that. And she says it's not working, and she realizes that the way to beat her anxiety is to kind of like step out of her comfort zone by actually talking to people and engaging. Is that kind of like what you were trying to go for, or am I like missing things here and there?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of combination of both. Well, it was really important to us to like kind of show that it's like this ongoing process, and like,
right,
like you can't just be like cured of anxiety, like that kind of as much as I'd like it to be that way. It's such a process, and it takes repetition and like trying different things. One thing that Ash, who plays Elle, kind of like incorporated in there is sort of those breathing techniques. You'll notice a lot of people will be like, hey, like, just breathe, and that specific technique might not work for everyone. So Ash kind of brought that sort of I think that one of the lines like toward the end is just like, like, will you stop like telling me to breathe, that kind of thing. So just kind of like driving home that like not every technique is going to work for everyone, and it's sort of like finding what's right for you. And then again, like sort of it's very intentional that like the creature will only like pretty much attack when you're alone. So it sort of forces you to get out of your comfort zone and to be around other people, to be able to like trust and rely on other people. That was a really important thing for me, because like I guess for the character of Elle, like one thing that they needed was just to sort of like get out of their comfort zone, and also like practice self-care and like do it in a like really intentional way. So I think that was really important, and I wanted like the first I guess I'm going to spoil my own movie if you guys are okay with
it's
that.
Okay.
But when Elle like and the gang like kills the first creature, I really wanted that to be with like a group effort, because I wanted that to be like Elle's overcoming that thing, and with the social anxiety. And then the second creature sort of being killed by Elle is sort of also that was also important to me, because I wanted it to sort of be like, even though like Elle has kind of begun to work through this cycle of healing, Elle has also like sort of grown as a person individually. So I thought it was really important that like Elle was able to overcome this creature like by themselves.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Gotcha. Something that I was, talking about briefly with Marqueze, just a little bit about like Swimothy and does the creature have like a name other than like monster?
Not really. It's in the script as not Elle.
Okay. So like I think something that to me the twist was the fact that that Swimothy was also another one of the another not L. Do you, when you think about like the creative process, do you, or like think of like your vision of the film, do you feel like Swimothy always was like a not L, or like, because there are also like some of those self-care tactics and strategies that actually do more harm than good. So can Swimothy be viewed as one of those things that could have been adding more anxiety, or was it Swimothy just, was the anxiety of taking care of not L spread to Swimothy? I'm not sure if I'm making sense.
I think I got where you're coming from. Like, it was always, like, in my mind at least, like, it's, your interpretation is just as important as mine. In my mind, I think it was always kind of there.
Yeah.
Because it never like really leaves you, and kind of at the start of the film you see like kind of this close like relationship that Elle has with this fish. So I kind of thought that might be sort of a good way of showing that like it's always sort of there even when you're like by yourself. It's not for Elle, like it kind of manifests as like a social anxiety, but like those those feelings don't always only come out when you're around other people, sort of.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I know one thing that I really enjoyed was like the so whenever her like cloned image would like follow her, and like immediately the first thing that came up to me was It Follows, when like the people are just like slowly just kind of like walking towards her, like the main character the entire time. And so like It Follows came to mind, and then also actually like the original Halloween movies came to mind. Well, I just think of like a monster or killer who just like slowly walking towards you, like somehow they're gonna get to you, even though you can easily outrun them, but somehow they're just like it's like that kind of creeping, just like always following you, always there, always right behind you, which when you like pair that with this theme of anxiety behind the film, that really makes sense of like it's like always just kind of there, like on your back, following you like throughout the whole time. And so like I thought that was like kind of like a cool like aspect to give the film.
Yeah,
cool, thank you.
I appreciate like, and something that just kind of follows along with that is just the fact that not L is like, when not L actually takes L's form, like L is just not L is sitting there watching, and it took me like a hot second to be like, oh, that's like her anxiety, like not leaving her alone. It's like she thinks she's like living like a normal life, like watching TV, trying to distract herself, but that's not really helping her anxiety. Her anxiety's like always there, kind of like creeping up on her.
I love the shot when Elle was like outside, and then like Elle's inside, and it's like day, nighttime, and like she's like going do all these other things, and it's just like standing there just still like, the whole time or whatever. I thought that was like a super cool scene.
I just kept thinking of like bystanders that are just like, what is this random person doing?
Yeah, actually, a funny story about that. So while we were filming that specific scene, after like Ash came back inside, they came up to me and they were just like, your neighbor like just closed their blinds, and just like, like there's definitely something going on out there.
Yeah, I can imagine that looking creepy as hell.
Oh yeah, I mean, it freaked me out, honestly. Like living in that apartment and like filming there all the time, just like, oh man.
That's fair. That's fair.
So that took place in your apartment?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
So I mean, it was super easy to film there, just because there's no commute, there's no
right.
Controlled
everyone come to you, you're the director anyway.
It made so much sense, because I was gonna ask you about like the set design, because the first thing I noticed in like the apartment were like the Childish Gambino like album posters and all that, and I was just like, I like this. I said,
who'd you get for the professor? Because that lecture about tenses for words had me dying a little bit.
Yeah, so that's one of my professors. He taught one of my film classes, and I just kind of walked up to him after class and I was like, hey, like we talk about film a lot, do you want to help us make something? And he was super gracious, and he was like, absolutely. So yeah, that whole thing was all him. He wrote
Was that like ad-libbed, improv, or like did you tell him to, like, how did that scene come to fruition? Was it just like, I want you to talk about past tenses of words?
No, so I pretty much came up to him and I was just like, hey, like, what do you want to talk about? And he's like, well, like, I think the English language is really interesting. And I was like, okay, so like, if you could just like talk an entire class period and like just about whatever you want. And he's like, this is it. So I was like, all
This
right.
was the choice.
He was an English teacher in his former life, I guess.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
I know. So I mean, just one thing. I just noted like a ton of like scenes I just thought were super cool that I noticed. So in the very beginning, when like the friends were like walking, and the dude's like, "Oh, I forgot my phone. I got to go back." And I love when they were like, "I'm not going back with you. Like, you got to go. You're by yourself, or whatever." And like he goes, and like from the camera angle, like you have the point of view of like the dog or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I just love the way it like raises up super tall or whatever. I was like, oh, that is such a great way to introduce the monster. Just like not that I thought the dog was like gonna like go crazy on him or like start biting or whatever, but it's just like this like huge thing. And as he looks up and all that, I was like, oh, that's a great way to intro the monster.
Was there like a particular reason why the vision was like blue and red? I know that like during the presentation scene, they were like talking a little bit about it, but I wasn't sure if like that was connected or like how you came up with like the vision being like blue and red for the monster.
Yeah, so that wasn't with the presentation, that like there wasn't any like intention there that was like connecting. The dog vision, I just wanted to do something that like showed that it's off, you know, like that's just kind of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
well, nothing like super like subtextual there.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I like the I like that. And then also just like going back to the sound design, I know we're bouncing back and forth, but I really like the sound design where not Elle was taking up Elle's form, where you were like, where it was like asking, are you cold? Are you cold? And you kind of heard it go from like kind of like warped to like getting gradually less and less warped. So I just think that was just like another creative scene. Were there any moments like in the production where like there were just like differing opinions on like how things should go, or like how like just like different things that could have been, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. There was I think that was one of my favorite parts about the production, is that, you know, I wrote the whole thing, and then I sort of, you know, you come in and then actors will have like sort of a different like take on it, a different interpretation. And I just really love that part of the process, because like everyone is just has their own kind of spin on it. And you kind of take some here, take some there. Maybe every once in a while you'd be like, oh, I don't think it's like quite this direction. But most of the time I feel like the actors were very in tune with the characters, especially Ash at the very beginning, when their character is first introduced. That scene was read completely differently than what I was like originally intending. Like Ash really did a great job with like fully selling that this is a panic attack. I think that scene specifically was, I think, the most different than what I'd kind of like envisioned. And I think it's one of my favorite scenes in the film, as far as like acting. Yeah.
I mean, it set the tone for like the rest of the it was a good scene. It kind of set the tone for the rest of the film. And then also like, I know that like, speaking of just like setting tones, like at first I was just like, why are we opening up with these guys who were really not in the rest of the film? But again, it's kind of building up the notion that like, if you face anxiety alone, like you're you know, it's tougher to face anxiety alone. So like that's kind of like where, and then also just like the entrance into it, which is like, it was like a great transition from there. So it was really cool.
Thanks.
I'm gonna question, how long did you how long was the script in the making?
Ooh, okay. I kind of initially I wrote it for one of my other classes like I would say like probably 6 or 7 months ago. It took me about like 3 or 4 months, I think, to finish the whole thing, like from the original concept to like final script. And then throughout like the actual filming, I was still like going back and doing edits and sort of like adding things, taking things away. There's like a whole scene that got deleted sort of like right after we started filming. I was just like, this isn't working. We should get rid of this, add this scene. So it really, I mean, it took the entire production. I was writing the whole time, tweaking things the whole time. And the actual production took about 4 months as well. So about 8 months of from start to finish.
Were most things that ended up getting into the final cut, was it mainly all like very strictly stuck like to the script, or was there like a lot of ad-libbing that like went on too when it came to it?
It really, so a lot of it kind of varies for sure. I think the most ad-libbed scene was the first scene with kind of those three like coming back from the party.
Right.
There was I definitely I wrote out the whole thing, and then we kind of got together and we were like, oh, like I want it to feel natural and I want it to flow. And then after that, there was like a certain amount of like ad-libbing. The final scene, like after as they're eating those like hot pockets at the very end, was sort of like a lot of ad-libbing there, which I feel like turned out good. And I feel like kind of like blending the two, I think there's definitely like a balance where like you want your actors to like feel freedom with their characters and be able to like, make it up and say things that they think the characters would say. And at the same time, you kind of like keep it on track and make sure that your themes are still there. So yeah, I think like a balance is definitely like, I don't want to be like a, Kubrick and say like, it has to be exactly like this because I trust my actors and I want them, to be able to express their characters the way that they feel. So yeah.
Nice. Thank you. I mean, I saw. I mean, I noticed this is on the. Which also, I don't even know if you mentioned. I'm not sure. This film is on YouTube, so
Yeah,
anyone,
it's-
anyone who wants to watch this film, you can go watch it on YouTube. Important to mention.
Trust me, I was going to make sure that we did not leave without mentioning.
Like at some point we are going to mention this by far. So I noticed that this is on the YouTube channel Cable 8 Productions. And so can you tell us a little bit more about like what that is or the company that you're working with?
Yeah, so it's actually a club at WCU. So it's I didn't really know that it was a thing until like the start of last year. Like I like heard about it, but I kind of like assumed that it was like either like a news thing or just like a sports thing, because they do have a lot of sports shows on there. And I was kind of thinking like that's not really my thing. But when I joined, they were all like super, there's a lot more like people that like enjoy making films and stuff like that than like I was expecting. So I was like, oh, this is super cool. I kind of found a really neat community there. The president while I was there, her name's Colleen. She's super cool. She was like super welcoming, and everyone there like at Cable 8, like they're all like super great to work with, and like the whole project just wouldn't have like come to fruition without any of them.
Gotcha. Did you get like actors through Cable 8, or like how did you kind of recruit some of the people for it? Obviously we know about the professor, but like how else did you get some of the other people that were involved?
Yeah, so it was all through Cable 8.
That's awesome.
It was super cool. Same with crew, all of them were through Cable 8. We sort of have like this application process where like people come in, actually do like a couple reads for you and stuff, and that was really cool. Ash specifically was I had worked on a different Cable 8 project with them like the semester before, so I was like, I actually wrote it for Ash. Like the whole thing is like specifically tailored to Ash because they're like a great actor, and I just like saw all this like great work that they've done in the past. And then the other people just were kind of a mix of people that I'd worked with on different projects and people that I've like seen some of their work and was really impressed with that. Patrick Mooney, who played James, he was in another actually feature film for Cable 8. I watched that and I was like, gotta get this guy on, super good. Kimani also, like I worked with them in the past and they were just really great and like hilarious, really fun to work with. So I was like, gotta have them again.
Awesome. It's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, that was definitely like something that like stuck out like very immediately, was like Ash's acting was like, oh wow, like this is like a standout performer for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's really cool that like you kind of wrote the script around that. I'm actually on like the YouTube like video right now on the website, and the first comment I see says like, I think this is a great film, expert pacing, creative cinematography, and impressive leading performance. And like, if I also had to like what I really thought it would be, like it was like those exact things were in my mind. Like the first thing I really thought was like the creative cinematography. Like I love the shot. I don't know if this was like a hereditary influence or whatever, but like I definitely love the shot where they were like walking down the hallway and like I don't know if it's like a school or whatever, and like the camera was like turning the whole time or whatever. Like I really enjoyed that shot. I thought it was like just a lot of like creative like cinematography just in general. As I just mentioned, Ash's acting was amazing, and then yeah, the pacing I thought was like really good pacing actually for like the film.
Oh, thanks.
At no point was I bored or like, you know, like when's this gonna happen next or whatever. Like everything like felt like it was like moving as it should.
Plot twist,
Ooh.
it was actually Marqueze's comment.
Hey, I have multiple YouTube accounts.
No. It's really cool. So I don't know if you have any other questions, Marquise. I wanted to kind of, if you don't, I kind of want to leave this up to Joseph to kind of see how much you're comfortable with sharing like details about the ending, so we could kind of move to like the predictions phase. Because obviously I know that we shared a lot of details, but I want to just respect like what you're comfortable sharing about the movie in terms of like specific details and stuff like that. So in terms of like segueing us to the predictions aspect, I'll let you cover like what part of like endings, what specific aspects about the ending you want to share. So kind of launch us to predictions, if that makes sense.
Totally, yeah. I'm comfortable with sharing whatever. I mean, it's out there. People can pause and go watch it, but make sure to keep
That's you.
popping
Pause it right.
predictions up.
Listen, if you haven't watched it yet, pause it right now so you can watch it already.
Make sure to thumbs up the video, like and subscribe. You know,
Put a comment.
You already know what to do.
Help out that algorithm, all that good stuff. But yeah, Joseph,
we're
take
gonna
it
blow
away.
Cable 8 up. All right, this is about to we're gonna get this viral.
Yeah, so the ending, there's kind of like two sort of endings. There's one that's sort of like you think it's over and then it's not. So one of them, of course, Elle and the group of people that are out on that farm kill the first creature, kind of do it together. And then the second one, Elle comes home, and then Elle is sort of like in their apartment decompressing. And then James is sort of like acting a little bit weird. And then James turns out to be a creature too. The real James comes back and they kill the creature. And then after that, I guess there's kind of like sort of a third ending. Too many endings, I guess. Not as bad as Beau's Afraid, but
or Lord of the Rings 3, Lord of the Rings, you know. You didn't tack on an extra 30 minutes of ending, so you're good there.
But the last kind of image that we're left with as an audience is Kimoni's character Cash also has a doppelganger. Cash is in this graveyard, and then as Cash is walking off screen, not Cash, I guess, comes out from behind a grave. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, obviously I think for me what comes next after this is like the whole story of what was it, Cash?
Was that Cash? Yeah.
Cash of Cash's like anxieties, and you know, maybe Cash's demons look a little bit different from Elle's. You know, Elle's like a lot of Elle's anxieties was coming from, you know, social anxiety, and you know, moving from New York to Pullman, that's a huge isolating experience there. I'm sure Cash's anxieties look a lot different. And so Mimesis 2 could be what that looks like. Cash's adventures with trying to confront the creature and stuff like that. I'm not sure if Marquise has a different interpretation how he thinks it could go.
Oh, vastly different.
Vastly different.
But that's okay.
Okay.
I mean, you're
Cash-
cool, Andy.
Knowing Marquise, Cash dies in the graveyard.
Yeah, you know me. But no, so the way I kind of see it is like Elle, like with the group, you know, like defeats, you know, the first monster, and then like by herself, like defeats the second one. But as we all know, anxiety is a very fickle thing.
Right.
Mental health just in general is a very fickle thing. And so I like the idea of like it never truly being gone, never being away. And so maybe like a period of time goes by where like, you know, Elle's better, like doing great, things are good, life is good or whatever. And then this thing starts creeping back into her life. But like in, you know, maybe some other way that was different from the prior way before.
I like it more of like a psychological kind of a thing instead of like a physical presence where like everyone can see not Elle. Maybe it's more of like a psychological where only Elle can see
Exactly.
the not Elle appear.
Yeah, and like Elle doesn't know whether like Elle's tripping, like whether like it's just like PTSD from like having to do this in the past or whatever. But like it's like extra added anxiety of like this is happening again. I thought this was over, but it's not over. It's happening again. But I think it'd be cool if it was like years down the line, you know, like when you really think it's gone, when you really think it's over, and bam, it's right back there again. And then I don't know, those were like just like the immediate thoughts in my head. But yeah, or like maybe like it's like passed down to like, you know, her like child or something like that in the future or whatever, and like she like has to like help her child battle it while at the same time like, you know, trying to like stand up herself, you know, from like the anxiety of it all. I don't know, those are just thoughts in my head. If you decide to use any of that, I want credit. But
Gotcha.
that makes sense.
Listen, all I know is that if that's the route you're going, you have to have us make an appearance in Mimesis too.
I need that guest appearance. I'll pay for my own flight. Just let me know.
I need that IMDb stamp.
Oh yeah, you got it.
No, I'm joking.
He's gonna be wearing a Poppin Predictions t-shirt just in the middle of the set, just pointing.
No, but Joseph, I know that, you know, when we were asking you to kind of be on, I asked you if you had any sort of like, obviously it's okay if you don't have like any sort of prediction, but like, do you have any sort of idea on where you think, even if there is not actually a second one in production or in thoughts, like how you think it would go from there?
Yeah. Well, what's that? Right before you answer that though, I just want to ask the question, like, do you actually have a sequel planned or not so far?
I don't think I would do a sequel.
Okay.
I could see their stories continuing. If anything, I think I would do a reboot. With like larger budget, like more complex creature design, I think. But yeah, I think I would do that.
Okay, cool. Sorry, go ahead with Andy's question, whatever that
was. Yeah, just like if you had any sort of like where you see the story continuing once the credits begin to roll.
Okay. So it's definitely a bit of both. I do think that it would follow Cash's story for a while because I feel like that's kind of, you know, it's unresolved. I'd want to resolve it and kind of explore like how the creature manifests for Cash. I think, I mean, Marquise, I think in my mind, I think you're right about like, you know, like Ella's kind of overcome the struggle for now, but I don't think that it is like a permanent thing. I think that, I mean, whole theme of the movie is that like, you know, healing is kind of this like ongoing process, and I think like dealing with this shapeshifter is sort of also, you know, it would be kind of a disservice to say that like it's dead, it's going to stay dead forever. I feel like that isn't like fully in line with, you know, anxiety. So I do think that like it would come back in some form, but I don't think that it would be quite the same as you're seeing now. I think that like as people grow, sort of like their mental health changes a lot and their anxiety changes. So I feel like it would definitely present itself in different ways and in like different scenarios. I think in this, in Mimesis too, I think it would be much more aggressive. I think it would like, I think it would sort of like attack L in like a group setting. I don't think that would deter it anymore. And yeah, I think that's kind of the direction I see it going. As for like the reboot, if I was to do that, I think I would change the setting, I think, because a big thing that we did in Mimesis is that like we really wanted to shoot everything and like make it attainable. All these locations are provided by the university. Everyone was super gracious and like wanted to help us out, so that was cool. But I feel like if I were to do a reboot, I think I would set it on an oil rig, like in the middle of the ocean. Yeah.
Dang, okay.
Super isolating. Yeah. But like pipe dream, if that were to happen, I think it would be like on an oil rig. The creature would behave a lot differently, and it, like, because of that increased budget, I think that like we'd be able to get away with some of those like more like complicated like practical effects, like maybe it could like morph partially into a different animal or something, like so I feel like that opens up like a lot of possibilities. I feel like I would want to keep those themes of like mental health, anxiety for sure. Like I think that's really the story. I don't think it's a creature, like so if I were to do a reboot or a sequel, I think it would definitely have those like same themes and sort of continue that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I there's so many different types of oil rigs, but my like first immediate thought is just like oil rigs outside, like in the middle of the ocean, that are just like surrounded by like crashing waves, like crashing waves and just like, I don't know, like I think that is such. I love that take. I hope you do this reboot. I was just gonna say, I just think that environment and that environment is just so unique. You don't really see many films touch that, where you see like there are like a lot of films that touch about college life and stuff like that. And that's not to discredit this film, but just like the uniqueness of that setting, I think would be able to give you more room to kind of explore different things there. So I think that's a really good idea for this reboot.
Yeah, so Joseph, you mentioned like a few minutes ago how like if you had a bigger budget, these are the things we would do. So my first question is, if you don't mind me asking, like, what was your budget for this film? And then two, I know you mentioned like the oil rig, but like what other kind of things like would you imagine with a bigger budget?
Yeah, so the budget for this was we were provided like $120, I think, maybe just somewhere from like 100 to 150.
I thought you were gonna say like 150,000.
No.
I was like, $100. All right, cool.
They're really trusting Joseph on his first. They
got faith in you, dog. Like,
yeah. So it helped a little bit with props. Definitely more funding would have been awesome. But that's kind of out of our control.
Of course.
So a lot of it was like self-financed. Like I sunk some money into like licensing for the music, and for like the creature, like the actual mask was made by this Etsy seller. Her name is Brains for Tea, so check her out. But she like custom made that mask for us, so that was super cool. Nice. Yeah, it's all like hand painted and everything, so I'm like, that's really good. Yeah. So that was significant. I had all my own camera gear. We shot it on pretty much one camera. We had a couple of shots with we had a guy, his name was Jamling. He worked with us for a little bit at the very start of the semester, and then he wasn't able to continue. So it was all pretty much on one camera. So yeah, and then if I did have a higher budget, I definitely do think that I would I mean, the setting would be expensive for sure. That would be
first thing.
a lot of that budget, but
It's like we're flying out the whole crew.
Just get a green screen, just get some like a
Oh,
set
yeah,
that
yeah.
looks similar and just do a green screen.
Spending millions on CGI then.
Yeah, I think the creature definitely I would want to like continue doing like some of those like practical effects. I feel like just it looks super cool, and like there's a lot of like talented artists out there that I'd love to work with that. But yeah, I think I would like really like lean into like making the creature a little bit more unpredictable, because I think that's one thing that like with a limited budget, you kind of like once you've seen it, you kind of know what to expect. So like I said, I think I would like have it like mimic other like animals and like different people. I think kind of the idea with the reboot is to like kind of lean into like exploring the creature a little bit more, and like sort of I feel like this creature is like doing what it can to like make itself like the most effective apex predator. So like if you close a door, there was that scene in that like storage area that like the door is closed and there was a little broom in there, or like whatever that was.
Yeah.
So Mimesis reboot, that creature would have like turned its like face into a crocodile, and it would have like stopped the door and like adapted to the environment kind of in that way. So I feel like that could be like something that sort of explore in the reboot if that does happen, which would be super cool. I'd love to explore this idea more. I feel like I could definitely like do another for sure.
Awesome. Dude, I can't imagine summer 2025. A24 presents.
We covered it first.
I'm ready for it, bro. I hope A24 picks this up. I'm ready for it.
That's awesome. So here at Poppin Predictions, we have a popcorn rating scale. So for those of you who this is your first podcast, first off, I'm surprised you haven't paused it by now if you haven't, to go watch this film. But you should if you haven't already. But we have this popcorn rating scale where, if we give something a small bucket, think of 1 to 3, it wasn't really worth your time, don't add it to your watch list. If you give it a medium bucket, it was definitely worth the watch, have it on your watch list, but kind of like in the middle, think 4 to 6. If you give it a large, 7 to 9, definitely worth the watch, have it towards the top of your watch list. And then if we give it a big bucket, think 10 out of 10, stop what you're doing, grab some friends so that you're not alone, and watch this film. So with that being said, Marqueze, I kind of want to know, obviously the pressure is a little bit on because you have the director
started with me. I was like, damn, all right, let's start it with me.
I don't want that pressure. You got the director
Small
standing
bucket.
right back. Where would you rate Mimesis on our popcorn rating scale?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna be very honest and frank. So normally when I'm like watching something, if it's like a movie on YouTube or something like that, independent film, whatever, from like a school or college or like a student film or whatever, first thought is, all right, this is gonna be small bucket, just automatically in my head. Like it's like, all right, because I'm expecting, like I like big production sets, all kind of stuff like that, whatever. I was pleasantly surprised watching this film. I'm just gonna say that right now. Pleasantly surprised watching this film. I really I was just like really surprised by the acting. Like I said, creative cinematography. I like the use of the sound design. I thought the like set was really nice. And yeah, so I'm gonna be real. I give this a medium bucket with butter. I thought this was like solid. Like it's obviously there were just certain things from like budget constraints and like probably time constraints and just like overall like pool of resources that comes with anything like this. But with what you had, I thought you did really well. So yeah, I think this is a medium with butter personally.
Yeah. I think that's a very, very good ranking. I think that for me, I kind of have to, this is our first independent. Actually, I don't know. Was Swiss Army Man considered an independent film?
That's A24. Is it?
Yeah, but even still, I don't know. It felt like an independent film. No, listen, it's definitely better. No. I think
Dude, I hate
it's
that
just
movie, dude.
Yeah.
really because you gave that one a very high ranking.
I know, but like
anyway, sorry. But I think that I actually I watched it the first time just to kind of get the feel of the movie, and I watched it again. I think watching it a second time, once you really get an understanding of the character, the themes, and what you're kind of going for, I definitely see it a lot more the second time watching it through. So for me, I'm gonna probably give it a large with no butter, just kind of like around there. I really did like the story. I think the acting was really good. I think the dog stole the show, and anytime that you have a dog in a movie, I'm gonna love it a little bit more.
that's why he gave it the large.
I think just for me, some of the things that, like, just things that just are outside of your control, of course, like the budgetary things. I think also just for me, the lighting. I know that we talked a lot about the sound, but there are certain scenes where, of course, I know it's a horror film. I know it's supposed to be dark. There are just certain scenes where it was just a little too dark for me, or I just couldn't get a feel of how things were going. But of course, like, I'm not blaming you for that. Of course, you have to do with what you got. There are just certain times where I couldn't see what was going on, and of course that leaves up to the imagination. But I just couldn't see a lot for some of the scenes. But overall, really good job, especially for it being your first like full length film. I know that's not something I can do, so like I feel like if I were to try to do something, it'd be a really basic plot. So like for you to kind of like take an idea, of course, like take in other people's interpretations, other people's opinions, but then really kind of stick to what you want to see. I think that's really commendable. So yeah, I think this was a really great job all around.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm always hesitant asking you, but like, do you have a popcorn?
I was wondering. I was like, are we gonna ask him that? I was like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, I would.
Of course, the bias is gonna be big bucket.
Big.
But if you believe it's a big bucket, like I want you to advocate and everything like that. But if you want to answer the question, you can. If not, that's totally okay.
You gotta defend your position.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you gotta defend it.
I will answer. So I would say, oh man, I would go with Marqueze. I would say medium bucket with butter, because I feel like, like being a student film, like there are like kind of some of those things that like, it's a big learning experience, and like, there's definitely things that I'd change, definitely. If I were to do it again, a lot of it is just, with budget constraints, and our audio equipment wasn't the best, so we had to kind of work with what we had. But yeah, I feel like for like all the work that like everyone else did, everyone was just so dedicated to it. There was so much hard work that was put into it that like like I'm not paying these people, so like them to come in and to like put in all this hard work and like help me kind of see my vision through was just like incredibly cool to see. And I think we did, like, it turned out the best I think that we could have made it at this time. So I feel like I'm definitely very proud of what we like came up with, and I'm like super happy with all the relationships that I built along the way. Everyone that helped out with the project, everyone that like spent like literally hours, and like we were shooting like 2-3 times a week, and then like editing, on top of that was hours and hours. So yeah, I don't know. I definitely would say we did the best we could with what we had, and I'm happy with what we came up with. And I think it's worth the watch. I mean, we set out to make something that like, people outside of like Cable 8 members would want to watch, So I hope that people watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah. Awesome. I have two final questions for you, Joseph. I'll start up. My first question is, something that we don't usually have a lot of guests on, but when we do have a guest on, I always ask them this question. If you could live in any cinematic universe as just like a guest or like as like a civilian or not as like the protagonist, but just like part of the universe, what would that be? Which one would it be?
Ooh, okay. I'll have to think about that. I think
It's like Bo's afraid.
Oh my gosh.
Hereditary.
We might have larger things to talk about in like a part 2 of Everything's Bo's Afraid. Then I'd have to ask like what part.
The boat part. Yeah, I just want to
No!
sit on a boat in front
You're
of
like in the audience,
an
just like
audience of
watching
people.
it all unfold.
No, I don't know. I mean, I've been really into like I've been playing a lot of like Star Wars games lately. Like the new one that just came out,
Yeah.
Jedi Survivor, super good. Definitely go play that if you haven't. But I don't know. I feel like the Star Wars universe would be kind of cool, other than like
Yeah.
the space Nazis and stuff. That's not cool.
That's
But
totally
just being
fair.
able to like use the force and like grab like some chips or something without like moving would be super cool.
That's
Love
fair.
that.
That's awesome. That's great. I love it. My final question for you. I don't know if Marquise has any other one, but just my final question for you is, obviously you just finished your first full-length film. I'd love to know if there is, obviously, I don't know if something's coming out soon, but just if there's any other ideas or movies that we can kind of see in the horizon that might be coming out.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we wrap Mimesis, I started thinking about like the next thing that I want to make. I think it would have to be like a short film or something that isn't like an hour long. Because I don't have that kind of like, I don't have that network anymore really. So it'd have to be something like 10 minutes long. I'd like to do like some sort of like a farce, I think would be really fun. I had kind of an idea if you want to hear the like pitch real fast.
Sure.
Hey,
Cool.
we love it.
Yeah.
We got,
All right, I'd love
we
to
got
hear
a
some
Poppin
feedback.
predictions exclusive on here. All right. Yeah, we want to.
So the idea is that because I feel like this is a pretty like you could definitely do it on a low budget. There's no like crazy practical, anything like that. I was thinking like you could have like kind of two main characters. They would be like kind of con artist type people, like just trying to make money. And they'd like pose as fortune tellers, and they would like try to get rich people and like kind of unsavory type people to like get their fortunes told, and then charge a bunch for it. And then like the farce of it would be that they would be trying to, I guess, like make their prediction come true. So they would be
like
like
actual
manipulating things. Yeah, kind of like Nathan Fielder type like situations where they're just like manipulating things to make it seem like their fortunes are true so they can charge more. And then one day like they promise too much and they have to like make this crazy thing happen. Yeah, so I think that would be kind of like a loose idea maybe. We'll see if it actually happens, but I feel like it'd be fun.
So that sounds awesome.
One, great idea.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Two,
I was thinking like Robin Hood right there.
Yeah, I know. That was a great idea. Two, when can me and Andy audition for the main roles? That's the only two things I need to know. But no, that does sound super awesome. Dude, we appreciate you so much like joining us for this podcast episode. We really enjoyed your film, and definitely like we've said it multiple times now, like you should go and watch this film Mimesis it's on YouTube right now. Just search it or Cable A Productions.
Yeah, it's super easy to find. It's super easy to find when you type in Mimesis.
We'll also put the link in the bio, so just check
exactly.
for the link. We'll have the link in the bio. But before we end, Joseph, you have the floor. Is there anything you want to plug, social media, or anything?
Yeah, I think I would just say like check out Mimesis. We all put a lot of work into it, and I think it shows for sure. My personal YouTube is I think just Joseph.Gardner or something, or like at Joseph Gardner or something like that. I'll send you guys a link. But yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Appreciate
that
it.
with that all being said, what did you all think of our continuation, our episode of Mimesis? Did you all kind of agree? Tell us if you think the oil rig idea of the reboot is definitely worth it, or any other kind of things that you would love to see in a reboot. If you haven't already, feel free to follow us on Twitter at Poppin Predict, Instagram poppinpredictions.pod. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hopefully you're watching us there. And yeah, until then, catch you later, everyone.
Peace, y'all.